You're sitting at your desk, staring at an email invitation to a social event you don't want to attend. Your finger hovers over the accept button. You feel that familiar knot in your stomach, the one that forms when you're about to say yes to something that doesn't align with who you are or what you truly want. Sound familiar? We've all been there. In a world constantly pulling us in different directions, learning to say no isn't just a skill. It's an art, one that's essential for living a life true to ourselves and our values. But why is it so hard, and more importantly, how can we get better at it? Saying no starts with understanding what truly matters to you. Think of your values as your personal North Star, the principles that guide your decisions and shape your character. They're not just abstract concepts, but the foundation of who you are. Maybe for you, it's honesty, creativity, or family. Whatever they are, your values are uniquely yours. Yet in today's hyper-connected world, losing sight of them is easy. We're bombarded with expectations, social pressures, and endless opportunities. It's like being in a crowded marketplace where everyone is shouting for your attention. In this chaos, saying yes often feels easier than saying no. This is where Stoicism comes in. Despite its name, Stoicism isn't about being emotionless or enduring hardship without complaint. It's a practical philosophy that teaches us how to live well by focusing on what we can control and letting go of what we can't. Ancient Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus understood something profound. True freedom comes from aligning our actions with our values. They believed that by saying no to things that don't serve our purpose, we say yes to a life of integrity and inner peace. How often have you agreed to something and immediately regretted it? Maybe it was a project at work that went against your ethics or a social commitment that drained your energy. Each time we say yes to something that doesn't align with our values, we chip away at our sense of self. But here's the good news. Every no is an opportunity. It's a chance to reaffirm who you are and what you stand for, an opportunity to practice what the Stoics called the dichotomy of control, focusing on what we can influence and accepting what we can't. Imagine you're Sarah, a graphic designer offered a high-paying job to create marketing materials for a company whose practices you find unethical. The money would solve many financial worries, and your friends and family urge you to take it. It's just a job, they say. You can't afford to be picky in this economy. On one side, you have external pressures and the allure of financial security. On the other, you have your values, your integrity and belief in ethical business practices. What do you do? A Stoic approach would encourage Sarah to look inward. What matters more, short-term gain or long-term peace of mind? Saying no to this job isn't just rejecting money. It's affirming principles. It's choosing to control the one thing she truly can, her own choices and actions. Saying no isn't easy. Standing firm in your values takes courage, especially when faced with pressure or tempting opportunities. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear. The Stoics understood this. They knew living according to your values often means swimming against the current, but they also knew this struggle gives life meaning. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. How do we cultivate this strength? It starts with clarity. Get clear on what truly matters to you. What are your non-negotiables? What principles would you stand by, even if it cost you something? Once you have clarity, the next step is practice. Like any skill, saying no gets easier with time. Start small. The next time you're invited to an event you don't want to attend, politely decline. When asked to take on a task that doesn't align with your priorities, respectfully explain why you can't. Saying no doesn't have to mean conflict. It can be done with grace and respect. A simple "thank you for thinking of me, but I have to decline" is often enough. You don't owe anyone a lengthy explanation for honoring your values. As you practice, you'll notice something interesting happening. Each time you say no to something that doesn't align with your values, you create space for things that do. It's like decluttering your life, removing what doesn't serve you to make room for what does. This is where the concept of essentialism comes in. A modern philosophy that echoes many Stoic principles. Essentialism teaches us to distinguish between what's truly important and what's just noise. By saying no to the non-essential, we free up our time, energy, and resources for what truly matters. Every yes is a trade-off. When you say yes to one thing, you inevitably say no to something else. The question is, are you making that trade-off consciously? Are you saying yes to what aligns with your values, or are you letting others dictate your choices? Of course, life is about compromise. The Stoics weren't advocating for a rigid, inflexible approach to life. They understood the importance of social connections and civic duty. The key is distinguishing between necessary compromises and unnecessary concessions. Imagine you're Alex, a parent juggling a demanding career and family life. Your boss asks you to take on a project requiring late nights for the next month, meaning you'll miss your child's soccer games. This seems like a conflict between work and family values. A Stoic approach wouldn't frame this as a black and white choice, but as an opportunity to find a solution that honors both values, professional responsibility and family commitment. Maybe Alex negotiates a flexible schedule, proposes remote work on certain days, or involves the family in the decision-making process. The Stoic principle of preferred indifference comes into play here. The Stoics believed that while we should prefer certain outcomes, we shouldn't be overly attached to them. In Alexa's case, the preferred outcome might be balancing work and family perfectly. But if that's not possible, the focus shifts to responding virtuously. Alex may take on the project but find creative ways to stay connected with family or decline it, while offering an alternative that meets the company's needs. The key is making a decision Alex can stand behind with integrity, regardless of the outcome. Saying no isn't about avoiding difficulty or seeking an easy life. Sometimes saying no is the more challenging choice. It might mean turning down a promotion to stay true to your values, or ending a relationship that doesn't align with your life goals. The Stoics would argue that these difficult no's are often the most important ones. Think about a time when you said no to something tempting but misaligned with your values. How did it feel at the moment? Probably uncomfortable. But how did it feel afterward? Often, there's a sense of relief, a lightness. That's the feeling of being in alignment with your true self. Fear often drives us to say yes when we should say no. Fear of missing out, disappointing others, or facing consequences. The Stoics had a lot to say about fear. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of our fears are exaggerated worst-case scenarios that rarely happen. The next time you're afraid to say no, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? More often than not, the consequences are far less severe than we imagine. Guilt trips from family, friends, or colleagues can also make saying no difficult. But Stoicism reminds us that we are responsible for our choices, not for others' emotions. That doesn't mean being insensitive, but recognizing that while we can control our behavior, we can't control how others react. If Sarah's family pressures her about the job, she can acknowledge their concerns, explain her reasoning, and let go of their approval. The art of saying no isn't just about refusal, it's about communication. Clear, respectful communication can soften the blow and strengthen relationships in the long run. Be direct, express appreciation, offer a brief explanation if necessary, and stand firm if pressured. Saying no is often difficult, but it is essential for living a life aligned with our values. When we say no, our goal is to communicate our decision clearly and respectfully. A common concern is that saying no might limit our opportunities or cause us to miss out on experiences. However, the Stoic practice of negative visualization can be helpful in addressing this fear. This does not mean being pessimistic, but rather imagining what life would be like if we said yes to everything. Imagine a life where every moment is filled with commitments that drain your energy and don't align with your values. It wouldn't be very fulfilling. By saying no to what doesn't serve us, we create space for the things that truly matter. Think of life as a garden. If you allow every plant to grow unchecked, the space will become overgrown and chaotic. But by pruning carefully, by saying no to what doesn't belong, you create space for the plants that truly thrive. Our lives function the same way. Every no to something misaligned with our values is a yes to our authentic self. Consider the example of Abid, a software engineer who feels a deep calling to teach. He is offered a promotion with more money and prestige, but also longer hours and increased stress. At the same time, he has the opportunity to volunteer teaching coding to underprivileged children. The promotion is tempting, but it doesn't align with his values of work-life balance and giving back to the community. A Stoic approach would encourage Abid to look beyond surface-level benefits and consider what truly fulfills him. By saying no to the promotion, he is not limiting himself, but aligning his life with his values. This decision may not be easy, and Abid may face questions from colleagues and family who don't understand why he is turning down an opportunity. This is where another Stoic principle is useful, focusing only on what is within our control. He cannot control others' opinions, but he can control his actions and responses. He can explain his decision calmly and confidently without needing to justify himself. Acting in accordance with his values brings peace of mind. A common concern is that saying no will harm relationships. Many of us say yes to maintain harmony, particularly with family and friends. But is a relationship truly healthy if it requires us to constantly compromise our values? The Stoics valued social connections, but emphasized authenticity. If we always say yes when we want to say no, we prevent others from truly knowing and understanding us. Take Maya, for example. She is an introvert who values alone time, but her extroverted best friend, Liam, frequently invites her to social events. Out of fear of hurting his feelings, Maya often says yes. Over time, however, she feels drained and resentful. A Stoic approach would encourage Maya to have an honest conversation with Liam. By setting boundaries, she isn't rejecting him. She is giving him the opportunity to understand her better. True friendships respect personal values and boundaries. If saying no damages a relationship, it is worth considering whether that relationship was truly serving both parties. Another important aspect of saying no is self-compassion. Aligning our actions with our values is a journey, not a destination. There will be times when we say yes when we should have said no, or when saying no feels incredibly difficult. The Stoics emphasized self-reflection rather than self-criticism. If we compromise our values, we should not dwell on regret, but instead view it as a learning opportunity. What does this experience teach us about our boundaries? How can we handle similar situations differently in the future? Imagine Chris, a recent college graduate eager to impress at his new job. He says yes to every request, even when it means late nights and extra responsibilities beyond his role. After a few months, he feels exhausted and disconnected from his values. Instead of blaming himself for not setting boundaries earlier, Chris can take a Stoic approach by reflecting on what he has learned, perhaps about his limits or his fear of disappointing others. These insights help him grow, making future decisions more intentional. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This reminder urges us to live with intention and alignment to our values. To cultivate the strength to say no, practical strategies can help. Regular self-reflection allows us to assess whether our actions align with our values. Practicing negative visualization, imagining the consequences of always saying yes, can strengthen our resolve. Starting with small no's in low-stakes situations builds confidence. Preparing polite but firm responses makes it easier to say no in the moment. Seeking support from those who respect our boundaries provides encouragement. Finally, practicing empathy reminds us that saying no allows others to respect our values as well. Consider Elena. A marketing manager has to work on a campaign for a product she believes misleads consumers. Saying no could have professional consequences, but saying yes would compromise her integrity. First, she reflects on her values and visualizes the long-term effects of both choices. Next, she prepares a professional response. "I appreciate the opportunity, but I have ethical concerns about this campaign. I'd be happy to discuss alternative approaches." Seeking support from a mentor reinforces her confidence. In saying no, she upholds her integrity, potentially influencing ethical discussions in her workplace. The fear of missing opportunities also makes saying no difficult. In a fast-paced world, we feel pressure to seize every chance. But the Stoics understood that sometimes less is more. Voluntary discomfort, choosing temporary discomfort for long-term gain, is a valuable Stoic practice. Saying no may feel uncomfortable at first, but it ultimately strengthens alignment with our true selves. Jumel, a musician, faces this dilemma. He is offered a position in a popular band that could bring fame and fortune, yet the band's style and values don't align with his artistic vision. The fear of missing out is strong, but as he reflects, he realizes his definition of success isn't about fame. It's about creating music that is true to his vision. By saying no, he isn't rejecting success, but curating his path toward fulfillment. Saying no doesn't mean being rigid or closed-minded. The Stoics advocated for engaging with the world while holding firm to core values. Aisha, an environmental scientist, is invited to collaborate with a company known for unsustainable practices. Instead of outright refusing, she engages in dialogue, expressing her concerns and exploring whether she can influence positive change. This approach allows her to remain open while staying true to her principles. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." By approaching difficult situations with integrity and adaptability, we turn challenges into opportunities for growth. Saying no isn't just about rejection. It's about making room for the right yes. Every time we say no to something that doesn't serve us, we say yes to something that does. Think of your life as a museum. If you accept every exhibit, the space becomes cluttered. But by curating carefully, saying no to what doesn't fit, you create a meaningful, intentional display of your values. Every no is also a yes. Saying no to excessive overtime is saying yes to work-life balance. Saying no to peer pressure is saying yes to self-respect. Saying no to opportunities that don't align with your values is saying yes to authenticity. The Stoics understood that true freedom doesn't come from unlimited choices, but from making choices that align with our deepest values. In moments when saying no feels impossible, remember Epictetus' words. "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not but rejoices for those which he has." Instead of focusing on what you might be missing, shift your perspective to appreciate what you are gaining. Over the next week, challenge yourself to practice mindful no's. Each day, identify one thing, big or small, that doesn't align with your values and say no to it. It could be a social invitation, an unnecessary work task, or a negative thought pattern. Notice how it feels. This isn't about rejecting everything, but about saying yes more intentionally. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." By saying no to what doesn't serve us, we create space for what truly matters: joy, growth, and fulfillment. Before saying yes out of habit or fear, pause and ask yourself, what am I saying yes to by saying no to this? The ability to say no is a practice that becomes easier with time. Each no is a step toward a more intentional, authentic life. Say no to what doesn't serve you, so you can say yes to what truly matters. Saying no isn't about rejecting others. It's about honoring yourself.